Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the world of family businesses, and specifically, the thing that everyone thinks is really simple, but is super complex: succession.
Yeah. Passing the torch to the next generation. You'd think it'd be straightforward, right?
Yeah, you would think, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, here you go, like, take it.
But there's a reason people dedicate their entire careers to figuring this out. It's way more complicated than it seems on the surface.
It is. And thankfully, there are people out there, like the expert we're drawing on today, Allan Galvão, who are really unpacking all the nuances of this. He has this awesome YouTube channel dedicated to family business.
Oh, yeah. He's a goldmine of information. And one of the things he really hammers home is there isn't one right way to approach succession.
That makes sense. Families are all so different.
Exactly. So instead of offering a one-size-fits-all solution, Galvão introduces these 4 distinct lenses to help us, analyze and understand the whole process more effectively.
Okay, lenses. I like that. It's like looking at the same problem through 4 different filters. What are these lenses exactly?
So much of the advice out there for businesses just doesn't quite fit when you're dealing with, family dynamics. It's too impersonal, Galvão's lenses bring those human elements into the equation.
Right, because it's not just about like the spreadsheets and the legal documents.
No, it's about the emotions, the history, the unspoken expectations, all that messy stuff.
The stuff that makes families, families. All right, so what's the first lens we're looking through?
The first one is what Galvão calls the interdisciplinary approach. Imagine a lawyer, super sharp, laser focused on creating ironclad contracts, but they're only thinking about the legal side of things.
So they're kind of like missing the bigger picture.
Yeah, they're not factoring in the family relationships, the personalities, the potential for conflict that might be simmering below the surface.
It's like having a world-class map, but ignoring the fact that there might be a hurricane headed your way. The map alone isn't enough.
Exactly. You might end up with a legally sound plan, but if it completely ignores the emotional realities of the family, it's probably not going to work out so well.
Right. So you could have the perfect document, but if the family's falling apart, what good is it really?
Exactly. And that brings us to the second lens, the multidisciplinary approach. This is where you bring in a team of experts, your lawyer, your accountant, maybe even a family therapist.
Okay, so that sounds like a pretty comprehensive approach. You've got all your bases covered, right?
It seems like it should solve the problem, right? But even with all these experts, there's still a potential pitfall.
There is. What's that?
Often, these experts end up working in silos. They're not really talking to each other or connecting the dots between their recommendations.
So you've got the lawyer doing their thing, the accountant crunching numbers, and the therapist, giving everyone a hug. But they're not really working together as a team.
Precisely. They're not seeing how their individual pieces of advice fit into the larger puzzle. It's like going to the doctor and they treat your cough without considering the fact that you also have a fever and muscle aches. It might be the right treatment for the cough, but it's not addressing the underlying cause.
I've totally been there. I'm getting treated for this one thing, but no one's looking at the whole pictures. It's super frustrating.
It is. And this is where Galvão's third lens comes in the interdisciplinary approach.
Okay. Interdisciplinary. That sounds like we're finally getting somewhere. Tell me more.
This is where things get really interesting because we're not just gathering information from different fields, but actively weaving those insights together.
So instead of separate pieces, we're finally starting to build a more holistic picture.
Exactly. Galvão gives a great example in one of his videos. He talks about how understanding family dynamics, which is like psychology, can actually help us come up with better tax planning strategies, which is obviously more law and finance.
Wow, that's interesting. So it's like the psychology of the family is actually impacting how you approach the financial and legal side of things.
Exactly. They're not separate issues. They're all intertwined. And when you start to see those connections, you can come up with much more effective solutions.
Solutions that actually work for the family and the business in the long run. I like it.
And that brings us to the most, maybe mind-bending lens, the transdisciplinary approach.
Okay, mind-bending. Now, I'm really intrigued. What makes this transdisciplinary approach so different from the others?
Well, think of it like this with the interdisciplinary approach. We're like connecting dots, right? This one is more like inventing new dots or maybe even realizing there was a whole hidden dimension we hadn't even considered before.
Okay, I'm starting to see why you called it mind-bending. So instead of just focusing on the business itself and like the people in it, we're zooming out even further.
Exactly. It's about looking at the bigger picture. Things like family history, their culture, even societal norms, All that can play a huge role in how succession plays out.
So like unspoken traditions, family secrets, all that stuff. It sounds a little bit like we're adding a layer of anthropology or sociology to the mix.
Yeah, kind of. Because family businesses aren't just about the bottom line, right? They're shaped by generations of experiences, beliefs, values. It's all woven into the fabric of the business.
I'm starting to see how this lens could really change the way we approach succession planning. It's not just a business decision anymore. It's about understanding a whole family's story and legacy.
Right. And sometimes those deeper layers are where the real knots and tangles are. Let's say you have a family-owned vineyard that's been passed down through generations. The obvious problem is deciding which child takes over. But maybe there's a deeper issue at play. Maybe the founder is terrified of losing their connection to the land, their family's heritage.
Wow, so it's not just about who gets the business. It's about what the business represents to the whole family. That's a whole different level of complexity.
And that's the power of this transdisciplinary lens. It helps us get to the heart of the matter, to see what's really driving the decisions and the conflicts.
You know, as we're talking about this, I'm realizing that these lenses aren't just for family businesses, are they?
Yeah.
Like this kind of thinking could apply to so many different areas of life.
Absolutely. Think about your own family or even your workplace. Are you approaching challenges from a single perspective? Or are you considering all the different factors that might be at play, the history, the emotions, the cultural influences?
It's like we all have blind spots, right?
Right.
And these lenses help us see what we might be missing.
Exactly. And that's what makes Galvão's work so valuable. He's not giving us a step-by-step guide. He's giving us a new way to think, to approach complex problems with more awareness, more empathy, and honestly, more creativity.
So we've explored these four lenses: interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary. And honestly, it's a lot to take in, but if I had to pick a favorite, I'd be really torn. So I guess my question is there a best lens? Is there one that's more effective than the others?
That's the thing though, isn't it? There's no magic bullet. It's not about finding the right lens. It's about choosing the one or the combination that makes the most sense for the specific situation.
Right. It's like having a whole toolbox full of different tools. You wouldn't use a hammer to fix a leaky faucet, would you?
Exactly. Each lens has its own strengths and weaknesses, and the key is to know when to use which one. And that's where Galvão's insights are so helpful. He's not giving us a one-size-fits-all solution. He's teaching us how to think critically and strategically about these complex challenges.
It's all about understanding the nuances, right? Each family's unique dynamics, their goals, their values, all that plays a role.
Absolutely. What works for one family might be a disaster for another. That's why this stuff is so complicated. But it's also what makes it so fascinating.
It strikes me that even experts like Galvão acknowledge just how complex this whole succession thing is.
Yeah.
And if it's challenging for someone who studies this for a living, what does that tell us about the rest of us? Like, we really need to prioritize communication planning and maybe even seeking outside help when we're dealing with this stuff.
Oh, for sure. We can't go into this thinking it's going to be easy. These are messy human problems. And sometimes we need a little help to navigate them. And that's okay.
Right. It's a reminder that it's okay to ask for help, to admit that we don't have all the answers ourselves, and that sometimes the best solutions come from collaboration and open dialogue.
And you know what? That applies to way more than just family businesses. Think about any challenging situation in your life. Could these lenses help you see things differently? Could they help you find a better solution?
It's like Galvão has given us this whole new way of seeing the world right. A way to understand those messy human dynamics that are always at play, whether we're talking about business or family or anything in between.
And that's a powerful thing to have in your toolkit, isn't it?
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Galvão's work, I'm curious, which of these lenses do you find yourself naturally gravitating towards?
Ooh, that's a good question. It makes you think, like, are we the kind of person who jumps right into problem-solving mode, relying only on what we know best? Or do we naturally try to see things from different angles, you know?
Yeah, I think for me, I tend to lean towards the interdisciplinary approach.
Yeah.
I get a kick out of connecting the dots and seeing how different ideas can kind of work together like a puzzle. But I can also see the value in stepping back and looking at the bigger context, like that transdisciplinary lens, getting that whole panoramic view.
I think we all have our own tendencies, right? But the cool thing is, no matter which lens we gravitate towards, there's always something to learn from the others. It's like adding more tools to our mental toolkit.
Definitely. Maybe the lens we're least comfortable with is the one that'll help us come up with the most creative solution, you know, the one we wouldn't have thought of otherwise.
For sure. This whole deep dive has really driven home the importance of being open to new ways of thinking. Stepping outside our comfort zones a little bit.
I couldn't agree more. And for anyone listening who's thinking, okay, interesting stuff, but I don't run a family business, I think it's important to point out that these ideas apply to way more than just business, right?
Absolutely. Think about how these lenses could help you navigate a disagreement with a coworker or a tough conversation with, I don't know, a family member. These principles of good communication, really trying to understand other perspectives, it's all valuable stuff no matter what you're dealing with.
It's like Galvão's given us his new set of glasses, like a way to see the world and all its messiness with a little more clarity and understanding.
And remember, this is just a starting point, right? There's a whole universe of knowledge out there about family businesses, human dynamics, and all that good stuff.
So keep asking questions, keep learning, keep pushing the boundaries of your own thinking. Who knows? Maybe tackling those tough questions is what leads to the best breakthroughs.
Love that. Keep diving deep, everyone.